My dear students of 11th class, today in your botany we are taking up the means of transport as we have been dealing with plant physiology, and previously in the introductory class we have discussed about the different types of materials that are to be carried out from different parts of the plant to elsewhere so as to perform the proper functioning. And now today we will take up the means of transport, that is the passage of materials into and out of the cells is carried out by a number of methods. Different materials need to be carried in and out of the cells, and this is performed by the different methods. That is, the first one is the diffusion, then the facilitated diffusion, and the third one is the active transport. And today we will have a view of the diffusion and the facilitated diffusion, and the active transport will be dealt in the next class, inshallah. Now the diffusion you must have heard about is the movement or the intermixing of gases. These were the simplest of the definitions for the diffusion, but here, as we have to deal with the movement of the molecules in solid or gaseous form within the plant body or within the cellular systems, and here the diffusion may have the definition like this: that the movement by diffusion is passive and slow. It may be from one part of the cell to other, or from cell to cell, or over short distances from intercellular spaces of the leaf to the outside, and these all are through the diffusion. And no energy expenditure takes place. While diffusion is in progress, there is no expenditure of energy, and in diffusion molecules move in a random fashion. That is, it occurs along the concentration gradient, that is from a region of high concentration to a region of lower concentration. And diffusion is a slow process and is not dependent on a living system. That means the diffusion occurs in the non-living systems also, and diffusion is obvious in liquids and gases, but occurs in solids also, in all forms of the matter where diffusion takes place. And diffusion is very important to plants since it is the only means for gaseous movement within the plant body. Hope you understand. And diffusion is very important to plants since it is the only means for gaseous movement within the plant body, and the rates of the diffusion are affected by the gradient of concentration, the permeability of the membranes which separate them, temperature, and the pressure. And now the facilitated diffusion. A gradient must already be present for diffusion to occur. Diffusion rate depends upon the size of the substances, so smaller substances diffuse faster. Particles which are lipid soluble can easily pass directly through the cell membrane as it is mainly made of it. Particles which are lipid soluble can easily pass directly through the cell membrane as it is mainly made of it. Substances that have a hydrophilic moiety, which are water loving, find it difficult to pass through the membrane The movement has to be facilitated. Hopefully you have got it. The substances that have a hydrophilic moiety, which are having water molecules attached, find it difficult to pass through the membrane. Their movement has to be facilitated. It means that it requires some facilitation. That means some sort of energy to carry it over the membrane. The membrane proteins provide sites at which such molecules cross the membrane, and they do not set up concentration gradient. A concentration gradient must already be present for the molecules to diffuse, even if facilitated by the proteins. That means there must be a concentration gradient already set up so that the molecules can move. And now within the membrane, the membrane proteins provide the sites so as the molecules are carried over the membrane, and this process is called the facilitated diffusion. In facilitated diffusion, special proteins help move substances across membranes without expenditure of ATP energy. This diffusion is very specific as it allows cell to select substances for uptake. Transport rate reaches a maximum when all of the protein transporters are being used, that is saturation. It is sensitive to inhibitors which react with the protein side chains. This is a bit complex here. Transport rate reaches a maximum when all the protein molecules, protein transporters are being used. That means that is the time of saturation. It is sensitive to inhibitors. Inhibitors are certain substances which react with the protein side chains. The proteins from channels in the membrane for molecules to pass through. The proteins form channels in the membrane for molecules to pass through. Some channels are always open, others can be controlled, and some are large, allowing a variety of the molecules to cross. And this is the facilitated diffusion. Now there are some terms which need to be explained, and that will be discussed inshallah in the next class. And this is the facilitated diffusion. This is the outer side on the left hand side of your screen, outer side of the cell. These are the molecules which are to be carried out inside the cell, and this is the channel in the red here which allows these molecules to pass through, and these are called as the transport proteins, and the molecules are called as the transported molecules. From outer side of the cell, they are carried through the transport proteins to the inner side of the cell, and this is the facilitated diffusion, wherein the molecules are facilitated by the proteins, specific proteins, so that they are carried over the cell membrane to reach inside the cell. Thanks. Have a nice day.